So I'm Danielle. I'm founder of Sustainablee. So looking at this from a slightly different perspective, I actually help organisations work through the B Corp assessment. So involved with lots of different companies that are going through this process. So I just wanted to share with you some of the things that I've sort of picked up with the companies I've worked with, but specifically really wanted to focus on the kind of muck and bullets of going through the B Corp assessment, because I think often as you get started on this journey, it's so exciting. There's so many really interesting pieces. People get very carried away when very excited about what their business could become by being a B Corp. But actually, as a lot of the speakers have talked about, there's a huge amount of work that has to happen in the background in order to become B Corp certified. So I just wanted to touch on some of the kind of sort of mechanics of how to work through the assessment, some kind of top tips, if you like, as to some of the things to think about. So the first one is to, and again, a lot of the speakers have sort of touched on this, but is to really identify that kind of core team. So who are the people who are going to really drive this from the centre and from within your organisation? Ideally, that team involves one, if not the CEO or the owner, certainly somebody on that kind of senior leadership team to sponsor it and drive it forward. But often it really helps to have that kind of core team in place, because B Corp is very complicated. The assessment is written to suit all sorts of different organisations of all different sizes. So it needs that kind of understanding and someone to really kind of dig into, what does this question mean? How do we interpret that? And kind of become kind of an internal expert team on B Corp and the assessment. So that's really useful, but be also willing and able to dip into and pull in partners from across the organisation, as others have talked about. I work specifically really with kind of smaller SMEs and often even micro businesses. So often that team can only be 1 or 2 people, but you still want to have access to that, to the kind of wide range of expertise. One thing that I've certainly picked up and I've learned is that B Corp asks for a lot of data. So as some of the others have said, it looks at your history and your performance over the last year. So you need to be able to evidence that. So if whoever is in that core team or whoever's working with you internally, my advice would be, see how can you make sure those people have got access to data. If they're in HR or finance or office management, they're often people who can get into systems, can extract reports, can collect that data. And that's really, really helpful, because that is a big part of the B Corp assessment, is getting hold of that data. So having people that can get hold of that easily really does help. And then the other thing would be, again, a very practical thing, but it massively helps, is as you're going through the process, to collect evidence as you go. Again, it's really, and I'm guilty of this as anybody, you get quite excited and quite carried away about, oh, we could do this and we could do that, and this sounds really good. But actually, as you go, methodically collect that evidence, make sure it's stored somewhere properly, so you know where to reference it later on. You can go back to it, and also work out how you're going to keep up to date with what changes might be going on in the business as you go through that process. But that kind of document management, good management around that area can really help, and doing that as you go is really useful. And then the final one, a really, really practical point, but something that has massively helped, especially if you're doing the B Corp assessment yourself, is within the assessment, you are able to download the assessment into an Excel sheet, and that will show you the points that are available and the points you've scored. So if you are at that point where you're kind of at the 70, 75 mark, and you just want to kind of move past that and want to know where the battles to choose, as we talked about earlier, you can download it into Excel and you can work out sort of where's the gap, where are the biggest gaps between the points available and the points that you've got. And that will then just help you prioritize. And B Corp isn't just about getting the points, as we all kind of know, but similarly, if B Corp have scored something with quite a lot of points, generally that means it's a really important part of the assessment. So it can just help you to prioritize, and it's a really easy way of working out where to focus. So I think they were kind of my top tips when it comes to managing the process. because as we've talked about, it's hugely exciting. It's a fabulous community to be part of. It's a brilliant way to change your business. But there's a lot of work that needs to happen in the background. And so being methodical, being organised, working through it in that way will make it much, much easier as you work through towards accreditation.